All right. So for starting off today, really step number one is talking about some focus and some clarity, right? So when we talk about where we're at and what we're doing, we want to have an opportunity to really focus in on the strategies that matter, the strategies that come into play when it talks about how are we going to look at 2021. Okay. Most of you guys all know each other, so I'm not going to make us go around and introduce each other because I think you're fine there, right? When I ask this question though, right, so this is something where a lot of times as real estate agents, we don't often look at what we do as a business, right? And I think it's important for us to actually understand, the balance of statements such as I am an entrepreneur, right? What we do every single day, we don't get a guaranteed paycheck. We wake up every single day with the idea that, holy, I need to go sell something or I might not have food on my table, right? I have to get up and actually take that next step to support my family or to support my goals and to support my dreams. There's some really huge advantages that go into that, right? So we talk about things like I work in real estate and my business affords me an abundant, full, and balanced life, right? So this would be an example of an affirmation, which I don't know if you guys spend a lot of time with or not. There's a lot of in the self-help world and in a lot of the business communities that I circle in right now, there are a lot of people that talk specifically about affirmations. Some people like to call it speaking it into existence, right? I just call it a goal, right? It's just the constant or repetitive nature of understanding goals and where you want to be. Every year this time we start to look at where we are as a company and where we are with you guys as a business partners and start to figure out what can we do to be better and how can we start to grow our business with your business so that we can all have this abundant, full, and balanced life, right? And there's some really cool components that come into this when we stop for a second and we process where we are, what we're doing, and why we're doing it. Okay, so when we look at understanding as an entrepreneur, okay, so what does it actually mean to be an entrepreneur? Do you guys actually look at yourselves as entrepreneurs? What do you think? It's legitimate. You can answer the question. You don't just have to sit there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, being a realtor is, depending on your role, but, running your own business, I mean, you're an entrepreneur, in I guess my opinion.
I think I thought that way 25 years ago.
Not so much today?
Well, yeah, I still do, but I'm kind of looking more at my repeat people I know. I'm not getting a lot of new stuff on the internet or maybe a little bit of floor duty, but I guess, and the technology is kind of leaving me in the dust, a lot of it. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's being honest.
No, that's great. Well, I'd rather you be honest than not kidding. So that's good.
That's why I was disappointed to see Becca, because I wanted to have her help me some more on some stuff, but that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, it's a bum deal for all of us, but we move on. Good. So how do you guys, what is the second bullet point, right? How does an entrepreneur who runs a business think and act differently from a salesperson? If you were to identify what does an entrepreneur do versus what is a salesperson doing, how would you look at those two roles differently? And what does that mean to you? A salesperson versus an entrepreneur, what does that look like? And you don't even have to think just real estate, right? You can think beyond the scope of just real estate.
With my past sales experience, I felt like it was very different because it was just selling, in most cases, a product or a service for a company that I was working for, right? Whereas this is different. This is very different because obviously if I just chose not to show up or do anything ever again, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter, right? I'm not going to get fired and nothing's going to change. I just won't be able to, I don't know, eat.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it is different than just being a salesperson, because I've done that before, and there is less business that goes into that, because it's not, in that case, it's just selling.
Right. Yeah. No, good.
And I think too, mostly in sales, I mean, you're working for someone most likely, and or for a company, and you're working your 8 to 5. You might have some calls on weekends or nights where you know, when you're an entrepreneur or a realtor, I mean, your phone is there 24/7, and you know, like Ashley said, I mean, it's how you survive and pay the bills. You know, it's different than a salesperson, in my opinion, that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome, you guys. So do you guys look at any people in the real estate industry? Do you guys follow other people, whether it's on social media, newsletters that you get? Do you guys get any other input from other leaders in the real estate space? If so, who are you following and what do you like about them? What kind of sets them apart from other spaces that you may be in?
I don't know if anyone else listens to the Brian Buffini podcast, but I've always been a huge supporter of him and his business. I've listened to a few other podcasts and gone down a few other rabbit holes with training or coaching or just small things. But I like it because he's actually done it and he's actually sold real estate and been successful within it, because I think there are some coaches and some people that speak towards real estate that haven't ever actually done it, which is very common, I think, in a lot of coaching and in a lot of leadership roles. Those that can't do teach kind of thought process. But I've been I've told everyone that I've ever worked with, like, you should listen to it. Funny thing is no one ever listens to me, but that's fine. So it's all good.
Yeah, Buffini is great. So we actually I have it down here. I have his peak performance program in the office here. So we've actually talked about doing that. So Buffini is great. He's really, Brian is really big on relationship building, understanding how to build relationships with people to get them to know, like, and trust you so that they work with you. And he's a great resource for a lot of that. The pop buys is kind of his big win. So if you ever heard of people in the industry talk about pop buys, that's a Buffini tactic right there. So he's great. Who else do you guys listen to and see?
How do you spell his last name? And then what do you podcasted, you said, or what was it?
It's Buffini, and it's literally just the Brian Buffini podcast. He has hundreds of them.
Okay.
And I get out of the habit of listening to them every so often because it gets a little bit repetitive. Sometimes it feels like, but he has wonderful insights. They're big in their coaching. So like, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt sometimes, because that's obviously the reason why the thing exists.
It's a sales funnel. Yep,
exactly. It's the Brian Buffini show, and it looks like this.
How do you spell it again, Ashley? B-U?
Buffini.
Okay.
And it's free. What platform do you listen to it on?
Just on Apple Podcast.
Okay.
I mean, I show it again.
Yeah, I thought I would just, open it up a little bit there.
I've done quite a bit of referrals with Rick Beeson over the last 15 years he used to be a Coldwell Banker. He's a Burnsville. And now he's with Consular, but we still have a really good, and I listen to some of the things he does with his customers. And one of the things he used to do is take them all to a Twins game one time in the summertime. And,
Oh, okay.
he's a big hitter. He's a big producer too.
Well, that's awesome.
I guess I listen to Bigger Pockets podcasts, kind of more for the investing side of it, but I also like to switch it up and listen to some of the realtor episodes and kind of working on getting more organized. They're just new ideas. There's so much there. They have a forum, Bigger Pockets forums. They have all sorts of stuff. So that's probably the one I go to the most. Every once in a while, like Ashley said, don't burn myself out on it, but I'm looking for something new or different to hop back into.
Yeah, and I will say too, I've called on a few agents that I really think very highly of, like even just in other markets, and ask them sort of, what do you do? What do you do? And how do all of your clients speak so highly of you? Because actually one of them is just down in the cities, and my father-in-law speaks very highly of my friends, speak very highly of him. And it's just, his name is actually Dave Long, and he's big with Edina down there in like the Northwest Metro. And he has been kind of a funny one that I've kind of reached out to. I also will say too, is you can do all of the Keller Williams training, and they have a shift Facebook group that they were letting people into at the beginning of the shutdown and everything. But I just never could read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent because it was really painful. Am I the only one that thought that he just sounded like a jerk as I was reading it?
I mean, he was definitely, I mean, it's a good book. I can't say that it's not worth, reading.
I have it, yep.
Or skimming, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, I hear you. There's definitely some, there's some. He's definitely gonna be that way.
Yeah.
If you need a good laugh, I follow on Instagram at the broke agent.
Oh yeah.
And all real estate stuff. And I mean, it's a little edgy, just to warn you, but
Yep.
Man, it really makes me laugh every time I log on, and the stuff they come up with, and just the random text messages realtors get from clients and sellers and buyers. And, it's really relatable. And I always like to laugh and have a good laugh. So I love following that one. If you want to add that to your Instagram or whatever.
I will do that.
It's funny.
So I'm surprised nobody's mentioned Tom Ferry yet.
I mean,
No?
I know.
All right. Well, Tom Ferry is, he's considered the #1 real estate coach, by Riz Media and some partners out there. And he's got the podcast. He's got a pretty robust YouTube channel as well. He has a lot of stuff that can be pretty cool. He gives a lot of free ideas away on what to focus on. I would say he's really big. He's really big in mindset is kind of his big thing, in adjusting your mind so that you have more of a growth mentality instead of a fixed mentality. I know that's a really big thing they're talking about in the public schools right now, even with kids, and just trying to help you understand your availability and willingness to move forward. So there's some pretty cool stuff out there. He's one that I really like. There's a guy by the name of Kyle Whistle. Kyle Whistle, Wissel. He's out of San Diego in California. He had an independent. He partnered with EXP. Oh boy, I want to say about a year ago. And he does a lot with video. And I like to kind of watch him and see what he's doing and how they're adjusting their video presence moving forward. As I think that's a space that as agents is so great to get into, because there's so little involved with the production. I mean, you can do it right on your phone, right? And people love video. They just love the content. It's funny. I was listening to some stuff. God, what was it? I was listening to some stuff on YouTube the other day, some facts about how people are actually utilizing the platforms. And YouTube, even though it is the largest video repository on the internet right now, most people listen to it versus watch it. So they can actually track when you have an active tab or an active browser. And when they started to talk about this, they were saying, most of our user base now is listening to the videos and doing something else in the foreground, specifically as COVID, people are working from home. And so there's this shift from podcast to being just, in an audio format to now being almost in a video format. So there's some really cool components, I think, that can go with it. But sorry, my printer just decided to spew out a whole bunch of stuff here that was unintended. So anyway, any others that you guys watch, love, follow? These are great.
I will say that I go, so on Facebook, there's a moms page that I've been a part of for like 4 years, and there's 50,000 moms that are, I mean, it's not super applicable to most of this group. I apologize, guys, but that has been incredibly helpful for me over the last couple of years. And then there's a bunch of realtors on TikTok now that is really fun.
Yes, there is.
Yes.
The dangers of, but still really fun.
It's fun.
It is, which is great. Awesome. Well, again, there's always some great people out there. I'm a huge fan of rip off and duplicate. I don't really think there's any reason that we need to reinvent the wheel as we talk about, planning for your business and what marketing activities you're doing. The biggest thing I always encourage people is just get out there and follow other people, right? And you can follow them for a while if you like what they're doing. Super cool. And if you don't, get away from them, right? You don't have to follow those people forever, which I think is a great opportunity. Excuse me, when we start talking about building out your business, this is a great space to find somebody, you like what they're doing, rip it off and duplicate it. A prime example, I know Ashley saw on election day, I made a post on Facebook that, said come Wednesday, regardless of, the candidate, that wins, if you want to leave the country, I can help you sell your house. And it was kind of funny, it was quirky, a little edgy, which I kind of enjoy. And that particular post that I made, in my head, I was going, why am I spending 5 minutes recreating this post that I saw another realtor from the other side of the country post? And I thought, this is meaningless, right? Well, lo and behold, I spent the 5 minutes utilizing canva.com to create that marketing tool, to create that ad or that graphic. And I posted it on Facebook and Instagram, and it reached all the way out. People ended up sharing it, and it reached all the way out. Some gal actually messaged me and said, hey, I'm in Maryland. I don't know why I saw this, but it was really funny, and I had to tell you thank you. And so it was just kind of like, oh, wow. Again, I saw something that I liked. I ripped it off. I duplicated it. I made it our own and got to reshare it. And, I got people like Ashley calling saying, hey, please don't do that without me next time. And
right.
I know, what a jerk, right?
Exactly. Sharing is caring.
You're not wrong. But, so there's some really great ways that you can find something you really like, just rip it off, duplicate it. And there's no reason not to at least have that conversation moving forward. So, awesome. All right. Oops, let me go back here. Next thing I want to show you. So this, you guys, we want to talk about, so why does business planning matter, right? Like, why do you want to spend a couple hours with your favorite friend and broker, Brandon, talking about business planning for 2021? Well, the reason I think we want to do that is there's three models, okay, that people in our industry operate under. Okay, the first one is what we call at-risk profitability. So if you don't believe that our business is seasonal, I want to talk to you and learn more about your methodology, okay? Because I firmly believe that we're in a pretty seasonal space, specifically in Alexandria and in central Minnesota here, because that's kind of how we follow, right? We just kind of follow the snow season is really what it comes down to. And so when we look at this, the at-risk profitability model tells us that revenue is below expenses in one or more months, right? So we talk about our business, and we follow the seasonal line, right, of the business. And then we take a look at where's our expenses, okay, and where is our revenue, okay? So you can see the revenue line here kind of comes up with the seasonality up, down, and around, okay? And this is a pretty basic graph, right? But if we were to really track our own market space, this is what it would look like, right? Usually our peak season is July, August, and then we start to ramp down. Okay, so as we talk about ramping down, we are in that mode, right? And it was actually, I think, was pushed out a little bit due to COVID. I think now looking at the board and the numbers and watching production, now seems to be when everybody's kind of slowing down as we enter the holiday season. And usually it's the first part of November, late part of October, you start to see that wind down, and it's just now the middle of November that we're starting to see that. So there's definitely some risk with that. But this at-risk profitability is one model we look at where we're saying, is there months when my expenses are bigger than my revenue, which normally nobody likes, right? Then we have what we call the variable profitability model, which is where revenue and expenses, or where revenue is above expenses every month, but not always by enough, right? So you can see that we try to minimize our expense level here, okay? And most of the time we can squeak by, and then we start making money, and then finally the bank account gets a little fat, and then we have to start leaning out a little bit, and then we barely squeak by, and then we're back around again, right? So we follow that seasonality, and we're lucky enough, right, to hopefully stay just above water so we can breathe enough and hold on and tread water lightly for a little bit to where we can actually start to make some money and find some breathing room again. Well, the reason business planning matters, right? Okay, if you can imagine following along on the slide, right, is we want to look at what we call predictable profitability. The great thing about real estate, you guys, is that it is nothing more than a numbers game. And we're going to walk through all of those numbers today. That's why I sent you your production report, so you can use your real numbers. And if you don't want to use your real numbers, because you'll use your projected numbers, you can use company numbers, whatever you want to use is totally fine. But predictable profitability is where we have the highest revenue possible every single month. And you see this gap, this is what we want to see, because this is where we start to build some wealth. And this is where we start to build some freedom to go to Disney World, buy that investment property, quit jobs, right? Save for college, buy new RVs, whatever the goals and objectives are that you have. This is where we start to build wealth, right? We start to talk about, well, how can we make our income predictable? And people who tell me that you can't predict your income in real estate, I think are bogus. I really do, because it's nothing more than a numbers game. Number of calls, number of contacts, number of appointments, number of deals, so on and so forth. It is all predictable. You can monetize it. Doesn't mean there aren't going to be troubles along the way, right? 2021, I think, is going to look really, really good. So it's a time to bank a little cash, okay? We don't know what 2022 is going to look like. But I think there's an opportunity going into 2021 where we have this ability to start talking about predictable profitability. And that's why we business plan. That's why we do it at the brokerage level. That's why I want you to do it at your business level, so that as business partners, we have an idea of where we can go for what we call predictable profitability. Any questions on this, or is this pretty clear? Okay, I see head nods, so I'm assuming we're good then. All right, awesome. Okay, so a couple things we're going to do to talk about to really get kind of jumping in and get focused in here, okay? So why is it that even at those times when there aren't many, and there are many of them, sorry, there are always sellers who need to sell and buyers who need to buy, right? So there's always those opportunities, but do you win enough of the available sellers and buyers in the worst months? And the answer could be no, right? It could be because you could get really busy with holidays and Thanksgiving, and you could stop lead generating. That's what I'm guilty of right now as I focus on the brokerage, right? Like my personal book is pretty small, is trying to figure out how do we replace staff and personnel. How do we are planning for 2021 and stuff, right? Like my personal prospecting is minimal right now because I'm distracted, right? I'm busy, I'm not focused. And believe me, I had a little come to Jesus moment the other day about that, going, oh, I really kind of still need to sell real estate to, pay my bills. But there are certain times in the year when we talk about there isn't enough to do, or I'm focusing on other things, or I was so busy, I just need time to reprieve. And although self-care, right, is important, the idea of letting go and not doing what you need to do and not focusing on what you need to focus on isn't really going to help the situation. Okay, so oftentimes I think, sometimes people say, well, this is the worst time to buy real estate. Well, that's not true at all, actually. Okay, we can talk about mortgage rates and inventory and all this other kind of stuff. Unless you're going to buy there's a new one. I'm assuming you guys saw it over on Bryant Street here for $36,000 in Alec that you can go check out, but you have to sign a hold harmless clause. So we're going to go take a look at that one later today. Really excited about that. But the point is, when we start talking about getting focused, we have to realize that a lot of what we're saying is on us, right? It's on us as agents to say we have an opportunity and we need to continue to move forward, right? We have a requirement to ourselves and to our business and to our families in order to be able to move forward and to move the needle to achieve our goals. And so when we're not focusing on what we need to focus on, that's when we start to lose steam, and that's when we start to fall out of predictable profitability, and we start to come back down into what I would call the kind of the danger zone and the unknown zone of where you're going to end up being. And so in order to understand why we need to get focused, I want to show you this. This is one of my favorite concepts that exists in real estate that I really think highlights why we need to be so hyper-focused, okay? And that's what we call the 100-day effect, okay? When we talk about the 100-day effect, this comes from NAR. So this is a national trend report that we call the 100+ day effect. Okay, and so ultimately what this means is when we talk about getting hyper-focused, this is why it matters. Okay, so on average, okay, 60 days on market for new listings. On average, a good home, if it's priced appropriately and marketed well, should last no more than 60 days on the market according to NAR. And I believe that. You look at our numbers, we're down to 55 right here in central Minnesota, inside of our 3-county area. It's 55 days. That's where we currently sit at. You want to talk about working with buyers? on average, it should take you no more than 7 weeks to be engaged in a buyer relationship with somebody. Okay, so from the point of contact, when they're active in their home search, it should take on average no more than 7 weeks for that person, so 49 days, for that buyer to find a home. So that's where we get 60 days, that's where we get 49 days, okay? So that's what starts right here, okay? Then what we talk about is this moving forward piece and all the way to closing, right? And so now we're saying on average, it takes us 50 days for listings to get to the closing process, okay? So it takes us 50 days in order to get something usually, and oftentimes I think we most, in our market spaces, we a lot of times will say 45 days, right? A little bit longer if you're an FHA or a VA, super long if you're working with RD because they're way backed up right now. But you're talking usually on average, again, it's about 50 days by the time you sign a purchase agreement to the time that you actually get your paycheck. Okay, so that's where you add those two numbers together. That's where you're going to get roughly the 100+ day effect. I just round it up and say it's 100 days, right? You have 100 days before you actually need to hyperly focus and get planning. Now, the really fun part about this is that this timeline only really starts once you actually start with a contract, right? And so the lead generation portion of this has an undefined timeline, because your lead generation can be as simple as going to the free stuff, right? When we talk about, you can do open houses. We're talking about doing buyer seminars. We're talking about going to chamber events. We're talking about going to networking events like Kiwanis or Rotary or LAPW or any of the other things that you're doing, right? So there's a lot of free things that we can do. There's also the paid side of the world, whether you're doing Realtor or Zillow. Maybe you're partaking in, our Op City referral program. Maybe you're taking into consideration your own lead buys, right? So there's all these things that we can be doing that's lead generation. Sometimes they're really simple. One of my favorite stories as of late, was a floor. It was this floor call that Ashley had. She came. She wasn't even on floor. That was my favorite part. The floor person wasn't here. Husband and wife walks in and they're saying, "Oh, we were just thinking of selling our cabin. We wanted to talk to somebody." And we looked around. The floor person wasn't here, and I said, "Hey, Ashley's here. Ashley, would you mind come talking to him?" And Ashley came out. They sat down, and before, I think somehow Ashley did a great job of taking this couple and not convincing them, but showing them the value of selling their cabin right now as compared to next year, right? Market demand, interest rates are low, higher buyer pool, so on and so forth, right? Just convince them that now might be the better time instead of holding, okay? They agreed. She ended up listing it and sold it, I think, within 48 hours for a full price offer. All because she was present and available, right? Like that's kind of the value of you partnering with us at Coldwell Banker, and the value of our brand is that people do just walk in and trust us because of our legacy. If you guys don't remember, our office in particular is the longest running real estate company in both Alexandria and even now in Morris too. And so we have a lot of this legacy planning stuff that we can really kind of stand on and be pretty proud of. So your lead generation can take a lot of time, and it can take no time. It can be, same day. Less than, I think, Ashley, you met with those folks for maybe less than an hour in the lobby, if I remember that day.
Yeah. It was maybe an hour, and they just came in kind of asking for like, hey, we just wanted to kind of get an idea of what it could look like next year. I went out there, I think it was the next day, and we had it listed the following week. And they sold it for actually $33,000. We have 4 offers, $33,000 above asking price. And I sold it the following weekend. So
that's just a win-win right there, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's that kind of stuff, you guys, that's really pretty cool though. So your lead generation can take a day, it can take an hour. I worked with some people for well over a year, even sometimes 2 years. I think my longest one is 2.5 years that I worked with a client before they actually made the decision to pull the trigger on something, right? So your lead generation time, we can't really quantify, right? You in your own personal book, if you track your numbers, you would be able to qualify. But on our side, we can't, right? And the same thing goes then into that cultivation period, right? Sometimes that's where it can take as little as, Ashley did it in less than an hour. I've worked with some that it's taken me 2.5 years of showing value and continued persistence before I just kind of wore them down, and they said, fine, if you're going to keep bugging us, we'll work with you, right? So you have all these different options on going through this, but that's when we actually get to the point of the contract, right? Because we are signing listing contracts right away. When we build that rapport, we get agency signed on the buyer side, hey, you guys, I would love to help you. Unfortunately, you know, facilitation is the default role in Minnesota. And in order for me to advocate and advise for you, we really need to formalize our relationship into a buyer representation agreement, right? So we get that buyer rep signed, we get that listing agreement signed. Now all of a sudden now that timeline starts, right? Now we have 100 days. So essentially we're talking about that sales funnel, and we start to work that thing down, and we know how many people we got to put into that thing in order to squeeze out that timeline on the other end. And so that's where I think this is just a really neat piece, because people say, well, how long does the process take? You know, I do a buyer consult and I say, this process should not take us any more than 100 days. That's what I tell people. I will sit down for a listing presentation. You know how many other agents know about the 100-day effect? Like, if you can sit down and tell a traditional seller, right? And you say, on average, if we do everything right, this should be done and sold and you'll be moved out in 100 days. That's the math, right? Like, that's just the national averages. Again, well, things change, of course. And that's why I always say, if you and I do our job right, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that's where in 100 days, we should be done and you should be moved on. Is that acceptable? And hopefully they say yes, because expediting it any faster is going to be a little bit hard. Sometimes you can cut it down to 60 to 70 days. But by the time you sign the contract, you get the photos, you get it all worked in, you have a different perspective that you got to walk through. So that's the 100-day effect. And I think it's important, as you talk about business planning, you kind of work in that 100-day window, right? Like, how many people are going to be this 100 days? The next day, you want a closing every day next year? Well, you better be making sure that you're planning, right, your 100-day window every single day. And what does that look like? Any questions on this? Sitting good. Sorry, Ginger's texting me, so I gotta make sure she's okay. All right, cool beans. So this is one of my favorites here. Okay, so a couple of things as we continue to move forward, right? So we talk about building your business, the 100-day effect policy that it has, and moving forward. Now we're going to start talking about kind of designing your plan. And really what this means is the first step of all this is kind of establishing a mission and a vision, right? And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this today. Some people think that, you know, having a vision and a mission of your personal book as a solo agent, as all of you are, is not meaningful. I would tell you that all that I've done is take my personal mission, and that becomes my individual agent mission, right? You know, some people are in the mode of, I need to have business over here, and then I need to have my personal stuff over here. Maybe it's my age, maybe it's you know, my own stupidity, I don't know, but I tend to blend them all together. I see that what I'm currently doing is helping people buy and sell real estate. That's part of my mission, right? It's like helping people have the freedom to live the lives that they want to live. I love empowering people to do that. That's why I love real estate, right? It's such a cool vehicle for wealth building and freedom and stability and nurture. It's just this awesome tool. And so I don't really know that we need to spend a whole lot of time on this, but we can sort of kind of quickly walk through a little bit of this. But do any of you guys have your own personal mission statements or vision statements? Do you guys ever talk about that? The mission, you know, kind of being the what we do, or and what gets done, and the vision is sort of why it gets done. You know, so do any of you have that? It's okay if you don't. I'm not saying you have to, right?
I guess I really don't, but I kind of just go off of one that I actually learned from the Coldwell Banker in Rochester. When I got out of college, I interviewed with a couple of realtor places to decide what was the best fit for me. And kind of what got me is there's a big conference room downstairs at this Coldwell Banker in Rochester. And they probably had I'd say at least 15-foot banner, if not 20-foot banner. And that was the kind of the mission statement. And it was just a couple words that said, always do the right thing. And that was it, you know, and that's how I knew I could trust that broker and that company. And that's kind of why I chose them.
I like that.
Good.
I really like that. That's good. Simple, to the point. That's awesome. The reason we talk about, you know, understanding, you know, the why do we do this? And I think when we understand why we do, why real estate, right? And I think this is a really important question, that if you can answer why you chose real estate, you're going to have a really good understanding, I believe, of where you're coming from. And it's also, in my opinion, it's a huge competitive advantage. Buyer consults, selling consults, any of that kind of stuff, when you can really tell somebody why you do this, that's a huge impact. The reality is, for some of you, it could just be, there's an unlimited earning potential. You cannot put an income restriction on what I can do. There's nothing wrong with that, right? For some of you, it might be more intrinsic, right? It's a wealth building tool, right? It allows me to build a legacy for my family. Could be something along those lines. Could be that you know, for me, a lot of what real estate I absolutely love helping, you know, specifically young families, is because for me, once my parents got divorced, and when I was around the 5th grade, my mom and I kind of bounced around from rental to rental here in Alexandria, and I never really felt like I had a home, right? Due to, you know, not to get overly personal, right? You know, but alcoholism and the disease that has on both my mom and my dad, you know, it kind of wrecked that sense of home for me. And so for me, the ability to use this in a capacity to help those people have a sense of normalcy and consistency is a pretty powerful thing. You know, I love getting involved with Habitat because you can just see the impact that a stable home has on kids and on families, and the growth that it has. And the other big reason for me, you know, being a guy who does like money, right? I look at this as real estate is statistically everybody's biggest asset, right? Statistically speaking, it is the majority of people's largest asset in their portfolio. And to me, that's a huge win, right? Like, I want to help you get that big money asset tucked away and secured. And I want to help you make a wise decision. I want to make sure you buy something that's good for you and it's good for your family. I want to make sure that the yard is going to work. I want to make sure that, you know, you can live there forever if that's your objective, even though statistically speaking, you're going to move in 6.5 years. But I wanted to be involved in that, right? And so that's where my passion really comes in for what we do and why we do it. I think when you guys have an understanding of why you do this and you can articulate it, which would be a challenge going into the new year's, that if you don't have a slide or you don't have a piece of paper that really talks about why do you do this, so that when you sit down with somebody, you can pull this up and say, here's why, right? Some people do it in a capacity that says, you know, I would just, Ken, you lost your sound. I'm really sorry. Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Ken, I'm sorry. I don't know what happened there, buddy. But when you can articulate what you have, that's when I think you get a lot of the value back out of it. So that would be a challenge kind of going into it. And you can take your why and you can transition that into a little bit more of your mission, right? And so these are just a couple areas, these 8 on the screen, that maybe might trigger some emotion for you onto why you do what you do. Is it because there's a little bit of social responsibility to it? You feel the pull to help out your community, to help the greater good? Is there some trust that you like being a trusted advisor for people? You like being that person that somebody could call and enjoy? Is there the reliability? You enjoy the fact that you're reliable, you can be there. Is there the transparency that you feel that maybe you didn't experience in the process, right? Is it because you know that you're an honest person and you know you're not going to steer somebody wrong? Maybe that's what it is, right? The integrity, doing the right thing, like Mitch said, always doing the right thing. Well, that's an integrity piece. That's a foundation of who we are and what we do, right? Is that we always do the right thing, whether whether people are watching or not. You know, something I know I've had conversations with a lot of you about this year is, you know, we're going to take the high road. Screw them. And if they want to play in the dirt, they can play in the dirt, and we're going to take the high road because that's who we're called to be. Okay. Commitment. Maybe you absolutely love the commitment side of this. You love the battle. You love partnering with people. You love coming through it and you're walking through side by side, kind of in the trenches of the daily stuff with your clients, right? There's a lot of value and fun that comes into that. And then lastly, maybe it's just the connection side, right? Maybe it's because you just really like people. You really like connecting with people. You really like that idea of you know, being present and being available and being a resource, right? So these are just some ideas just to kind of get you going on a little bit about maybe why you are. And so this is where, you know, I'm not going to ask you to share your mission or vision or anything like that, but ultimately the thing you want to focus on here is really saying, you know, who you are and what you do and how does that differentiate yourself in the market space, right? So one of the key takeaways, hopefully, other than actually getting through the financial side of today, is to really talk about how do you come in and articulate your why, right? And I think it's a critical component that I know all of you are going to be able to pretty much dominate your market spaces. If you walk in, there's not a lot of people who walk into the table and can really articulate why I do this. Why do you want to hire me? Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself, right? I'm going to show you a picture of my family, and I'm going to show you a picture of my office. I'm going to show you a picture of all the people I work with. But really what people want to know is they just want to know about you, right? And the great thing about, some of the marketing activities that we can do, specifically with social media, like zero cost for most of the time, is we can start to build that rapport, and we can start to show people our passion, and we can start to show people how we are and why we are. And that's where we get a lot of the really great value that comes out of it too. So again, your mission and vision, you guys, it comes down to defining what you do and why you do it. And when you understand what you do and you understand why you do it, that's when you're going to start to get a lot of clarity around some of your business planning as you start to move forward. So Ken's on back on again, which is great. So any questions around that? I can talk about this stuff all day. This kind of stuff jacks me up. So
I will say that, and some of you might like this, and I say the same thing anytime, especially like when I'm meeting with a new buyer. And I will openly admit to them that I stole this from my mother-in-law, and I'll stop saying it when it's not true. Okay. And every time I'm meeting with someone and I say, at the end of the day, I won't be the one living here and I won't be the one making the payment. So really, I'm just here to guide you through the process. But yeah, she said that in front of me a few times, right? I won't be the one living here and I won't be the one making the payment. Right.
Mhm.
And then I'll say, I'll stop saying it when it's just not true. Okay. But I've really enjoyed using that. I've really enjoyed it because it just speaks some truth to myself and to the business that I want to run. Right. I'm not pressuring people into making decisions. I'm not encouraging them to make things that are ill, or because it's my choice. It's up to them, and I'm just here to walk with you through this process and get you the home when it's the right one. So
that's awesome.
thought you might like that.
So what I want to do is I'm gonna give you, this is your kind of your first activity break, if you will. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give you about five-ish minutes here, at least 5, okay? And I'm gonna give you some time. What I want you to do is grab a piece of paper and just start to, and you can just brainstorm it. You don't have to articulate it well. It doesn't have to be super fancy or anything like that. Take a couple minutes though, and I want you just to start thinking about what would a statement look like, right? What would something state that says, kind of defines what you do and why you do it, right? And the reason I want you to do this is because it's gonna bring a little bit of clarity when we start talking about goals a little bit further down. And so I'm gonna give you a little bit and just talking about, what's the reason you want to sell real estate? And it can be, like I said, it doesn't have to be a fancy statement. Just grab a blank piece of paper, okay, and just start writing stuff down. And it can be sideways, it can be upside down. Don't worry about making it pretty. Just figure out a couple things. Why do you do this, right? What do you do and why do you do it, right? So that's really all I want you to do. Take a couple minutes and just really think about why am I selling real estate? Like why am I licensed? Why am I going to pay my dues? Assuming all of you are going to pay your dues, for next year. I haven't talked to all of you yet, so I'm hoping you are. But assuming you're going to invest into this arena, why are you going to do it? So I'm gonna give you 5 minutes, and then we'll come back around 55 or so, and we'll call you back. So if you want to get up, stretch, go to the bathroom or whatever, you can do that. We'll come back in about 55. Otherwise, take some minutes and just jot some ideas down, and we'll come back here in a second. So we'll see you guys in a few. All right, well, if you guys can hear me, I'll wait for you to all come on back. Lucas looking great in his shades. You know, I can't find my blue light reflecting glasses anymore. I gotta find those. I don't know where they are.
Oh, I need some of those really bad.
Abby bought me a pair last year, and I didn't know that they would be as great as they were. Turns out I absolutely love them.
Yeah, Shannon got a pair and she loves them.
I don't know where they went. Well, that's fine. That's fine. Are you able to write something down?
Yes.
Sweet.
I got a lot of jibber jabberish, but
Jibber jabberish is good. That's the start, right? Welcome back, Ken. Hi, Don. I know Ashley's in the office here somewhere.
I can hear her.
Yeah, you usually can't miss her. There she is.
There she is.
Which is good. Then I don't know where Mitch is.
I was muted.
You were muted.
I was
You were
muted.
muted.
Does everyone like my Christmas color changing cup? I love it. I'm so happy.
Love it.
I know you love it.
I do.
All right. Well, I'm not going to wait on Mitch because I want to get to the fun stuff. Well, this is fun. I don't know about you. I'm having fun. So, anybody want to share any thoughts or anything you wrote down? Anything you're willing to share? It doesn't have to be a polished statement. It can be jibber jabberish, as my friend Lucas said. It doesn't really matter. If you're comfortable sharing, I would love to hear some of the stuff you came up from as far as what you do and why you do it. Ken, you're on mute if you were willing to share. I'm not sure. Ken, you're still muted.
Still muted.
Look at the bottom left of the screen, that little microphone. There it is.
Yeah, about 15 years ago, I had a gentleman walk in. He's 72 years old to walk in and telling his story. And he said, you know, I've never owned a house before in my life. And then the short story is we actually got him some of his retirement funds, and he bought a $26,000 house in Elbow Lake. And he was so excited that he came back and he brought me a little plant.
Oh,
And that was one of my all-time favorite sales. Yeah. Anyway, I put down to see the buyer smile every time they walk into their driveway.
that's a great reason.
Yeah.
That's a great reason.
Yeah.
Anybody else willing to share? Anybody else willing to share?
My starting in this has kind of been good, and I kind of felt like I was sort of thrown into it a little bit. Obviously, family being involved in the industry, it wasn't necessarily something I chose, but it's something I really enjoy, and I didn't really think that I had a mission statement, but I definitely do. And I very often will tell people, like, this is my full time. This is all I do, right? And I'm dogging anybody that does anything else, of course. It's just, this is it for me, and I really enjoy it, and I really take a lot of pride in the fact that, like, you're helping people and you're really messing with people's lives, right? You're really affecting them in a meaningful way. And if they have a terrible transaction and it goes awful and they hate it, or they lose out on a house that they felt like was their house, they're going to remember you forever, right? And it's not going to be for a good reason necessarily. And so really trying to really take that to heart and know that you're really affecting people, and the trajectory of you know, where they're going to be spending their Christmases and their holiday events, and kids are going to be taking first steps. I've had, you know, at open houses, people, you know, with their little ones, kids take their first steps in the living room, you know, and yeah, so it's funny. I didn't think I had one, but then apparently I do. Who knew?
Yeah, it's amazing when you start to actually think about this stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is awesome. Yeah, and I think Ashley, as you continue to kind of to take some of those ideas, and if you spend a little time, and usually wine helps in refining them, I think you got something. You have the beginnings of something that can be really powerful for you and your clients, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas, you unmuted. Are you willing to share?
Yeah, I'll just say I have quite a few things written down, but I mean, I haven't been doing too long, but you know, the main thing that is really kind of struck me, kind of like people are kind of saying, just building the relationships and being there for people. You know, I had tons and tons of, you know, experience because I've only been for about a year and a half, but I've had one seller that it was the hardest thing in the world for her to sell her house and just to be able to guide her through it. And then I've had first time home buyers with their kids. Just, I mean, this is the best thing that ever happened to them. Just seeing the building the relationship and seeing the impact that we have that's huge to me. So that's kind of the main big reason to help them through the hard and the good.
Awesome. Don, is there anything you want to share?
I guess basically what I'm not, you all know I'm not extremely busy like everybody else, but usually my goal is like, if it's working with buyers, it's to truly help them find the perfect home that they feel is their dream home within their means, and that they have a relatively smooth transaction, and that they feel comfortable coming to me, and that they'll come back to me again. And like you said, you don't ever want them to have an experience that they remember you negatively for the rest, forever.
Mm-hmm.
That can crush your word of mouth is the most successful advertising out there, whether it's, especially on the negative side. So with having my real estate or my resort as well, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I take a lot of pride in making sure they have the absolute best time they possibly can have while they're here. So kind of the same thing with real estate, really.
Awesome.
Hey, Brandon, a question. Do any realtors ask for a survey from buyers and sellers? Right now, I'm getting about every time I go to the doctor, every time I go to insurance agent, everything I do, they want a survey. What was how did you treat this person? Everything. I'm tired of them, really. It takes time, but
Yep.
Are realtors doing this?
Yeah, I think a lot of us are. One of the things we'll talk about is, kind of evaluating your online reputation, right? We know that 98% of all home searches start online. And so the survey aspect, I think there's a couple different ways that people do it. Some will utilize a platform like Zillow or Realtor.com to collect their responses. I personally am a big fan of Google and trying to keep people submitting reviews on you on Google or Yelp or something like that. But yeah, I mean, there is definitely a way. NAR used to send out paper surveys. If you remember, Kevin and myself used to bring those. Well, actually, I don't think I ever brought one. Kevin used to bring them to sales meetings and would read them. It'd be a little hard copy paper thing, but NAR stopped doing that about 5 years ago. So, what are people doing now? It's really up to you, whatever your book of business is saying you want to do, and trying to cover some of that. So they do get asked, but it has to be initiated by you as the agent. So if you're not doing anything, it's something we should probably consider talking about at the office level too, is different platforms and what you could be using and where you should be putting them and so on and so forth. So awesome, you guys. Well, that's I don't know about you, but that's exciting stuff to me. I love hearing kind of where you're at and why you do it and what you do. I think that's super, super awesome. Now, the next thing we really talk about is the attitude side of where we are, right? So, you know, how many of you, raise your hand if you know a realtor who has a successful business by luck? Ashley knows one person just because of sheer luck they got successful, huh?
It's a whole other set of circumstance.
Ooh, we'll move on, right? That's fine. So the thing we really want to talk about is attitudes, right? So we want to talk about your attitude and how it relates to, you know, you as a business owner, right? So we talked about the entrepreneurial side, the business ownership. We talked a little bit about why you do it and what you do. And so these are a couple of attitudes that we just like to kind of talk through, right? So the first one, right, is real estate is a business and my role is an entrepreneur. And so when we think about this is one of those attitudes that you can almost kind of build an affirmation around, or understanding really what's that next step. So when I think beyond sales, when I think, you know, kind of that affirmation, when I think beyond sales, I think there's the opportunity for us to build stability and predictable income, right? So when I think of myself as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, I can start to process that I don't have to live in the negative cycle, right? I don't have to live with my expenses greater than my revenue at any point during the year. We can plan and predict the way we go. And that starts with kind of that attitude shift. So this is when we start talking about some of that mindset stuff, as I mentioned, like Tom Ferry does a lot of, right? Another attitude we really want to start focusing on is today's activities have impacts on tomorrow, right? We start talking about that 100-day effect and why does it matter with that sales funnel. You go through seasons where you were really busy prospecting and you spent time, you devoted an hour a day, 2 hours a day, whatever it was, to prospecting. And all of a sudden, next thing you know, you are so busy with home inspections and contracts and purchase agreements and everything else that you no longer prospect. And that's the way most real estate agents actually operate, right? You get really, really busy and then you have nothing. Then you start prospecting again. You get really, really busy and then you have nothing. And then you prospect again. And then you get really, really busy and then you have nothing. And it's that terrible cycle that we want to go out. So we need to know and plan that today's activities will have impact on tomorrow's. And then lastly, this big one, I don't know if you guys have ever heard this, right? But failing to plan is planning to fail. There's a reason that we do exercises like this. There's a reasons that we step forward into planning what 2021 will look like. And we don't know yet. We're going to start breaking some of that down, but it's a really big deal, right? And so this is, we start to look at year 1, year 3, and year 5. We can start to plan how we're going to scale our business to meet the income levels that we want to achieve. And so this is a really important component here, and just how we handle the attitudes of which we come into the business. So shifting away from a little bit of the cloud stuff, right? So now what we're going to do is we're going to walk through some of the actual tactical stuff, right? So now we're going to start looking at, so we had an idea of kind of establishing the bigger picture of what we're doing. And now I want to break it down into some of the really tactical pieces here. And so this is where we're going to take a little bit of time and we're going to start to work through some of the tools here. The first one, all right, let me pull this guy back up. So the first one I really want to show you, of course, is this Excel document, okay? And so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about this Excel doc. Is this big enough for you guys, or should I blow it up?
That's
Can
big
you
enough.
see it okay?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't see anything actually. It just says Zoom in the middle of my screen.
Okay. Do the rest of you see the Excel doc?
Okay.
Let me stop the share. Let me try it again and see if that helps in any way.
There it is.
Sweet. Okay. So as we work through the Excel document, I'm just going to kind of show you how this thing works, okay? And then I'm going to let you actually spend some time filling in your numbers. If there is a gray box, the gray box is designed to be editable, okay? And if you don't have this, you can upload it into Google Sheets as well. It will work. Or you can use the PDF version depending upon which one you want. And both of them will work very, very well. One just requires a little bit more. So the first thing you're going to do is there's a bunch of tabs on the bottom of the sheet down here, okay? So you'll see there's the budget tab, The solo agent, the teams one, you will ignore since none of you are on a team. We have the years 3 and 5, the monthly breakdown, and the 168-hour rule, which we'll get to. So the first thing I want to show you here is just the budget tab, okay? So the great thing about this is that we are going to break this down on a monthly basis. And then you can see at the very end over here, though, it's white, okay? And it'll actually auto-calculate that. So one thing we can talk about is starting just to break this stuff up. So we know what are your business expenses? That's what we're really after here, right? So I know my board, license, MLS stuff. Okay, I know that I'm going to spend $45 a month, right, for my MLS access. Okay, I know that come December, when my dues are due next year, all of a sudden I'm going to spend $45 a month, right? And I'm going to spend probably another what is it,
500 and something, $40.
540 and 45. So I'm going to spend 585 in December, right? So I know that those are going to be some of my expenses. And you can see now my annualized expense starts to show over here. Okay. Then I'm going to start to come back. I'm going to see if I can do this on one screen here. Okay. So now I'm going to come back and I'm going to say training and coaching. I know that I know that I'm going to have some CE that has to get done. And I know that I'm probably going to spend, I'm going to say $60 in March, and I'm going to probably wait last minute in June. So I'm going to spend another $90 there to get it all done. Okay. Then you come down and we start talking about marketing, right? Is there some signage that you want to do this year? Is there some things you want to do, right? So we're buying new signs for the office. Maybe you want your own signs, right? I know Mitch and I both operate with our own signage, right, and things like that. So maybe you want to start doing some of your own stuff. Maybe you want to budget because you want to list some big commercial stuff. Maybe you want to budget for a 4x8 sign or something like that, right? And so you'll annualize this. I'm going to go down just January for ease of sake here, but let's say I'm going to spend $100 in January on signs. Print advertising. Let's say I'm going to send a New Year's letter to my sphere of influence and just let them know that, hey, I'm still here, guys, right? And I'm going to spend $50 on that. And then I'm going to come down flyers. Maybe, we're going to spend $150 on something here. Facebook, online ads, right? Maybe I'm going to spend $300 a month with Zillow here. Maybe I'm going to farm. Maybe I'm not going to farm, And then closing gifts. Maybe I'm going to spend, we're buying gift cards for people and I'm going to budget 3 closings at $50 each. Maybe I'm going to spend $150, right? Technology, right? Now, if you're utilizing the company provided website as a business partner with us, we provide you a pretty robust website that you can really manipulate. You can add custom content to it. It costs you nothing. So this could be a $0 expense for you. If you want to go out and do something different, maybe you have an expense there. Maybe you want to put your phone in here, right? Maybe it's going to cost you $80 a month to have your phone. That's light. Let's say it's $150 a month because I feel like that's the normal rate, right? Photography and video services. Maybe you're going to go out and you're going to spend $350 on some stuff there. Meals and entertainment, you're going to budget $200 a month. You're going to put depending upon what your accountant would suggest, okay? Whether you take a mileage deduction at the end of the year or you actually write your car off as an expense would change whether or not you would put this in here. And maybe you have what's $400? Is that an appropriate car payment? Sure. Contract labor, maybe you need to talk to your CPA a little bit this month, right? You know that you need to buy, a box of pens, whatever, right? And then maybe you have some other stuff you're going to put inside of here too, right? Maybe that this year coming in, you need, there's a laptop that you need to buy, right? Maybe you're going to spend $2,000 on something like that. So you can come through and you can fill this out. The good thing is that you can just, if you know that your monthly, if you know that your phone bill, your cell phone bill is $150, you can simply just come over and you can just cross that all the way over, right? You don't have to overly complicate the process by any stretch. Same thing if you know that your car payment is $400, you just kind of budget out $400. And so some of it can be a little bit repetitive. It's the first column that takes a little bit of effort into actually processing and figuring out. Then you can come down, so you can see this first month, right, in January, my total monthly expense if I buy my laptop this year, is going to be about $3,900 to run that, right? To run my business. Then we come down, and now we have this next section, which is going to talk about your personal expenses, right? So it's going to talk about your mortgage payment. It's going to talk about your utilities, right? Maybe you're going to budget $200 for haircuts and clothing and whatnot. You're going to get your groceries in there. Maybe you're going to put $75 for entertainment, childcare, and sporting activities, things that maybe you need to start budgeting for, right? Maybe you got $100 that's going in there. This is a big one, right? What's your health insurance? Any other debt payments? Maybe you got some student loans or credit card payments that are on a monthly obligation. Well, we're going to just put those in there as well. Let's say you get $200 of that. Any other insurance that you have, right? A big thing, that we always want to talk about is, if you're a primary income like I am in my household, well, I have other obligations, like I have short-term and long-term disability insurance that I cover as the primary breadwinner in my household. So maybe you got some pieces there. Maybe you got some, school, you got field trips for kids. You got other items that you need to pick up or whatever, right? So you're going to put those in there. And you talk about your personal savings goals too. I want to put $100 away a month for an IRA, right? Or a 401k program that I have. And I still want to give, $200 a month away for charity. Maybe I want $50 petty cash and whatever else. Okay. So this is where you come through, and it's going to take a little bit of effort, right? Which is why I told you to bring not only some of your business expenses, but then also some of your personal expenses, because this will give you a true picture of where you're at. Now, as you start to play with this, you'll start to see the numbers will adjust. And again, if it's a gray box, that's what you can edit. Okay. Then the next thing we want to do is I want to go down to the goals tab, right? So the goals on the solo agent. Now here, this first one, it says, what are some things that you actually want to achieve this year? Okay. Maybe you want to take, my wife and I are talking about going to Disney again, right? I want a Disney trip, and I know that that's going to cost me $4,500. Okay. Maybe you have an objective that you want a new car this year, and you're going to you want $10,000 cash to do that, right? Maybe you want to increase your savings, right? Or your retirement account. Okay, maybe you want to do another 10 grand there, right? So I know that these are going to be a couple of the goals that I want to achieve and the funds that are needed for them. Okay, these are what they are. These are how much I want to save for them. So I know my personal total goal cost is $24,500, right? Now remember, gray boxes is what we edit. So I go to this next one. This year I want to earn. So this says my personal goals are going to be $24,500. That auto calculated. It's not a gray box, right? My personal expenses came over. This is populated. You can change it if you want to round up, right? You can do that. My business expenses comes over from that first tab, okay? And once you fill in every month, this will be an accurate depiction, okay? And it will say populate in and any additional profit. Maybe this year, I want to make another $5,000 in profit on top of just covering my expenses and hitting my goals, right? So now I know that my total business financial goal for this year is $44,365. Okay. This is where you'll start to use that production report that I gave you. This year I need to produce. This is where it says my average sale price. Okay. My average sale price by a company standard is $267. Okay. You'll find this on that report. Then you can say, what's my average commission per side? Your number will be on there. If you don't have one, you can use 2.66. That's the company's. It'll round up to 2.7. Okay. That will then tell you average commission per transactional side. Okay. Then you can talk about, you can put your split in here, and then it will say, it will calculate my average commission is here on an average transaction. And it'll auto calculate how many transactions you actually need to do this next year to meet your business goal. So if these numbers were true, if I was on a 50-50 split and using the company averages, I would be sitting here with 13 transactions. It's just math, right? By giving it the data, I can then come back and say, I know that in order to meet my financial goals this year, I need to sell 13 homes. Not too bad, right? Now, this is the really fun part. Now we start to break it down even a little bit further, okay? We say, okay, listing and buyer side, desired percentage. How many, do you want to be a listing agent or do you want to be a buyer's agent, okay? And whatever you want to do, you can decide the percentage breakdown. Let's say 70% list, 30% buyers. Maybe you want to be, 65, okay? And you'll notice that that will auto change, right? The white boxes change. Now, these numbers in red are up to you. Okay, these are what, I don't know how many of you track your numbers close enough to know what's your pending to close rate, what is your active client to pending rate, or what's your appointment to buyer or appointment to client rate. Okay, hopefully you know those numbers, and if you know them, you'll track them, and then you can input your own numbers. If you don't know them, you can just use the Realogy average numbers that we've taken and consolidated for you. You can use these instead. So if I know that I want to be a 65% listing agent, pick up 35% on the buyer side, I know that I need 9 closings, or I need 9 listings this year, and I need 5 buyers, okay? I know that if I use even just the stock numbers, okay? So if I only close 88% of my transactions that go pending, okay? Then I know that I need to get 11. So I need to, over the course of the year, I need to have at least 11 pending transactions in order to close 9, right? If you know that your close ratio is higher, then maybe it's going to be 9 to 9. You don't lose any deals, right? From that, I can say it's going to take 80% from I need active clients to a pending rate. So how many active people do you work with that actually get under contract? Usually it's an 80-20 rule, is pretty standard. You can see 80.6, okay? So if I use 80.6, then that's going to tell me I need to get at least 14 people under contract this year. So you see, all we're doing is we're taking the baseline numbers and we're just using the math to rebuild it out. Now, I know that if I have 14 people, okay, 14 active clients this year that I need to get under contract for listings, right? So I need 14 new listings this year. I know, and again, if you don't know your number, you can use the average here of 85%, that it's going to take me, I close 85% of the listing appointments I go on, okay? So if you know that number, then you know that you need to take 17 listing appointments this year. See how we're getting there? And the great thing is, this whole spreadsheet will do the work for you. All you got to do is enter in a couple of numbers and it'll calculate it all out, right? So if you don't know your pending to close ratio, you don't know your active to pending ratio, and you don't know your appointments to client ratio, that's okay. Use the default numbers that are here, right? And that's okay. So if you know that you want to be a 50-50 person, well, then you can change that. You want to be a heavy listing agent, super cool. You want to be an 80-20, awesome. It will retail you. Now it tells me that I need 20 listing appointments this year in order to reach my goal. Same thing coming down here. Average number of appointments needed to close. If this is again, this is a calculated number. So it's telling us that you need 2.1 appointments needed to result in a closed transaction, which is a pretty good ratio, okay? So you know that in order to reach your number, you need a total of 27 appointments. You can see, right? 27, that's that sum total right there. And now you get to say, how many hours a week are you going to work? Maybe you're going to work 45, right? Number of appointments you need each week. You only need 1 appointment every week in order to meet your goal if this is your financial objective. That's 1 appointment a week. Now, how many number of prospects? If you don't know this number, you can use 30, right? Average number of prospecting contacts to result in 1 appointment. The industry average says it's going to take you about anywhere from 20 to 30. As an experienced agent, it's going to take you about 20 to 30 prospecting contacts. So positive contacts meaning you call somebody, they pick up the phone, they say, hey, Brandon, how you doing? I'm doing great. How are you? Right? And you start to have a meaningful conversation about real estate. So that tells me that you can use 20 to 30 as kind of a given number. And it tells you how many number of calls you need to make each week, right? Number of prospecting contacts, right? So this is my average. Now, if I say it's only going to take me 25, so if you track how many calls you make to appointments and you track all of those numbers, you will have these numbers available to you, okay? Average number of prospecting contacts is going to be 25 in a week. That I know that I have to make 25 because I need to make 1 appointment a week in order to reach my goal, right? So the numbers are just coming right back down into it. Again, number of days worked. Maybe I know I'm going to work 6 days a week. Well, that tells me how many people do you need to call every day to have a meaningful conversation about real estate? Well, maybe this tells me I need to call 4.16 people and have a contact goal with them every single day. I need to make contact with 4 people a day to talk about real estate. That's not that terrible. You can do that in 20, 30 minutes if you really had to, right? It's as simple as picking up, you going through a past client, right? Going through an open house roster, calling your neighbors, right? And just saying, hey, yeah, it's Brandon with Coldwell Banker Crowd. I was just calling to check in with you guys. How are you? Christmas is coming. You guys got big plans? Hey, how's that house? Is it still big enough, or do you need a dedicated office room now that you've been staying home, right? It's a great time with COVID, right? To check in with people. Hey, I just wanted to call and see how you're doing. Oh, we're doing really well. Everybody's healthy. Really appreciate you calling. Hey, how's the market right now? Well, it depends. Are you thinking about buying or are you thinking about selling, right? That's my favorite answer, right? People say, how's the market? Well, it depends. You're thinking about buying or selling because it changes my answer. So 4 contacts a day is not that difficult in this particular situation. I mean, like I said, you could have that done in about 30 minutes if you actually put your mind to it and use the CRM to log your calls and to log your contacts. This is so cool. Like, this stuff jacks me up, you guys, to be able to like walk through this and like have the basic numbers. I think it's just amazing. All right, so this year, now you get to talk about it a little bit more, right? So I need to contact. So I know I had to use 4 people. I just figured all that out. This year I need to contact. Now we start talking about lead sources, okay? So what you want to do is go through your production and be like, where did my people come from? Where did my contacts come from? It could be sphere of influence and referrals, right? Past clients. Maybe for sale by owners is one. Maybe you guys work expireds really well. Maybe one of you does open houses really well. Maybe it's Op City, right? Maybe maybe it's online leads. Okay, whatever source that your business came from, you should know the top 4 sources where your 2019 business came from. Okay, and what you want to start looking at is, well, how many closings per source did you get this year in 2019? My sphere of influence, maybe I got 6 referrals and 6 past clients who came in. Out of for sale by owner, maybe I closed 2, right? My expireds, maybe I got 15 out of those. Maybe online leads, I closed 7, right? So now you can start looking at this, that your conversion rate, okay? So this automatically is telling you it's about 20% of your conversion rate, 13% on for sale by owners, 30% on expireds, 7% on online leads, okay? So, sorry, you want to make sure you actually put in your contacts, like how many contacts did you get from these online sources too, right? So it takes a little bit of work. I'm not telling you it doesn't, but you don't do the work, you don't get the numbers, and the math doesn't tell you how to actually prepare for 2021, okay? Then you can talk about next year, I want my sphere of influence to be 50% of my business next year. I want for sale by owners only to be 10. And then I want expireds to be 15, and I want online leads to be 15% of my business, just to keep it real simple. 50, 60, that's not enough. I'm going to say 20 and 20, 100% of my business, right? Make it real numbers. So then it tells me, again, how many transactions to meet your financial goals, how many transactions need to happen from each one of those sources, okay? So I know I need 7 from my sphere of influence. I need 2 from for sale by owners, 3 expireds, and I need 3 from online to meet my financial target, okay? Now you get to start saying, okay, what kind of additional contacts are needed from this source, okay? And these are all calculated numbers. And so this is what it tells you. You need 35 people on what they call a relationship builder campaign, right? So something in your CRM, something that's telling you to call these people to have a contact with them. You need at least 35 people inside of your sphere of influence in order to have that conversation that you need to be continuously talking with. You need 15 for sale by owners. So I know that I need to go out this year and I need to find 15 for sale by owners that I need to have conversations with in order to hopefully convert them, because I need to get them down to 2, right? I want at least 2 to meet my goals. I need 10 of these people, and I need 43 online leads in order to close them, right? So it uses your capture rate, and then it works with your goal to actually tell you what the magical formula is for how you're going to do this, okay? We're going to skip over the goals and teams. If you hit year 3 and 5 down here, then what you can do, once your budget sheet is done, you will get updated numbers here, and you can add additional numbers in here. And then this year, it'll tell you again, I need 13 transactions this year, average number of appointments, 2-1, number of days worked is 6, my daily general contact is 4. So this will help you set your 3- and 5-year goals as you start to watch these populate when you work through the rest of the worksheet. Then your monthly breakdown. This is actually pretty cool here as well. Again, you're always going to choose solo agent, which should be there. It'll bring over, of course, your numbers, how many transactions you need to do. And then here's your 100-day effect, right? It's telling you need 27 appointments, 4 daily contacts in order to actually reach your goal of 13. This here, if you don't know your quarterly breakdown, so this is the percentage of income that comes from throughout the year. So it tells me 5.5% of my annualized income comes in January, 6% in February, 8% in March, so on and so forth. You can just use the stock numbers for now if you don't know. But then you actually get the ability to come back and it's telling me I essentially need 1.1 transactions every month in order to reach 13. Pretty cool or overwhelming? Don says overwhelming. That's okay. Honesty is good, right? So here's what I really want you to do. I'm going to give you a little bit of time. The first thing you want to start with is just start with your budget. Okay. And if you want to be really generic, that's totally fine. Okay. And just go all the way through and figure out what are you actually looking for on a monthly basis. And you can just copy those values into January, February throughout the rest of the months. Okay. Your personal expenses, if you want to just fill in, if you know your monthly thing, just use one of these other ones and say, you know what, I know my monthly expenses are $4,500, right? And then you can come through and you can zero all of those out if you want. And now you can do it just on a one line, right? So some of you obviously do your own budgeting in different capacities. That's fine. If you just put your one number in, at least that will then help carry over. So when you go to the goals tab, okay, this is the big one, at least the numbers will populate, okay? It'll bring in your personal expense, your annualized expense, and then you can fill in your profit and then really kind of go through the rest. So for right now, I would say what you want to work on is the budget and your goals tab. Those are the first two that you want to work through. If you don't like the Excel document, let me pull up. Let's see here. I sent this guy. So if you don't like the Excel doc, you can certainly come in and utilize, the PDF version, which again, first section here on page 2 is you're just going to put in all of your numbers year to date, right? And then you can come through and then you'll start to work through the goal projector on step 2. And then you can start to work through a little bit of step 3 as well, okay? So really for right now, if you're using the PDF version, I'm going to say go through steps 1, 2, and 3. And if you're using the Excel document, you're going to go through tabs 1 and 2, which on the bottom of that, which is going to be your budget and your goals as a solo agent. Okay. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take probably a 30-minute break here. Okay. And you're going to work through these documents. And that's where we're going to start. And we're going to come back. I'm going to say 12, how about 12:10? Okay. We'll come back. And that way it gives you some time to work through this. We'll come back at 12:10 and it'll be really short and sweet to kind of wrap up and work through the rest of this. You don't have to get all of this done today, you guys. This can be a living, breathing document as well. But the reason I asked you to block, a 3-hour time window was so that you could actually focus and get this done. Because if you're like me, and if you don't actually focus on it, you probably won't get it done. So that's where if you take a little bit of the time and you actually work on it, we'll be able to really start to work through some of your numbers. So I'm going to leave the Zoom room open. And so if you've got questions, you can throw it in the chat because I'll turn my camera and my mic off here. And so that way, if you've got questions along the way, I'll be available and I'll gladly help out and kind of walk through or process some of these things with you. And if it's too personal and you don't want to share here, just say, hey, Brandon, call me and I'll pick up my phone and I'll ring you really quick too so we can have a more private conversation. But so we'll play on 12:10. We'll come back. I'll just put that in the chat here and come back at 12. Whoop, I hit the tilde button. 12:10 p.m. All right. So if you guys got any questions, hit the chat. You can text me. Otherwise, get to work and start getting some of your numbers inputted, and we'll go from there. So we'll talk to you guys in a few. $45,000 a year. And so obviously, context.
Aiming to marks Biden and the foreign policy. Save the shark attack. So box it in with foreign policy. Harder for the. It's been called that by a lot of people. I bet he's been called the son of a bitch by a lot of people. Forty-one. I want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and around the world. The president has fired his top election security official. It's a continuation of his purge and the scorched earth policy he's implemented since leaving the White House with President-elect Biden. Chris Krebs gone in a tweet apparently for doing his job and telling the truth. He recently released a statement saying the U.S. election was safe and secure. Quote, deleted were lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. In the face of the president's false claim that the election was rigged and dominated by widespread voter fraud, it absolutely was not. Some Republicans were writing conspiring the press, but mostly they just stood by silently as they hope the president comes around to reality that he lost the election. In Michigan, a couple of Republican election officials decided they were going to try to block the outcome, refusing at first to certify the vote in Wayne County, which is the Detroit area. Why Wayne County? Well, because it went heavily for Joe Biden. Wayne County gave Joe Biden Michigan, and facing considerable public pressure to let the voters be heard, election officials ultimately relented. A lot of this is just really a strategy to erode public confidence in what was a very well-run, secure election, and we see this at the battlefront, not just in Michigan, but as you mentioned, around the country. And so it's also important to call out what it is. These efforts are not going to be successful. The people have spoken. The election has occurred. Their turned pathetic punchline. Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, was in court yesterday arguing a case for the first time in almost 30 years, and it showed. As Giuliani represented the Trump campaign in a courtroom in Pennsylvania, the federal judge asked him if he was He said, quote, "No, Your Honor, we are not admitting fraud." Then he falsely alleged the election process was fraudulent, which led to the judge responding, perhaps not surprisingly, "So you are alleging a fraud." That judge noted some evidence to bring a case, not just suspicion. During Giuliani's presentation, he name dropped Mickey Mouse and John F. Kennedy, and he tried to link Pennsylvania to a bogus nationwide conspiracy to deny votes to Donald Trump, again without presenting a shred of evidence. Some observers noted that the former mayor seemed rusty, and that he didn't remember basic legal terms when questioned by the judge. The judge asked Giuliani what type of scrutiny the court should apply in the case, and there are about a handful of ways to respond to that question with pretty Giuliani's answer: the normal kind of scrutiny is not one. That's unwelcome news for President Trump, whose post-election purge began with the firing of Defense Secretary Mark Esper, whose loyalty trumped this question, and who didn't agree with the president on pulling some U.S. troops out of Afghanistan and Iraq, an announcement that was made by Esper's replacement on Monday. And now the president has fired America's top election security official, Chris Krebs. Krebs did not back up Trump's unfounded claims that voting machines dumped millions of Trump votes. In fact, he refuted. Krebs met with the blunt end of a presidential tweet last night, the president announcing Krebs' dismissal on a social media platform, just like he did with Esper, Security Director Kirstjen Nielsen, and Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, to name a few. Joining me now is Rhode Island Congressman Jim Langevin. He is a Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee. He's the co-founder of the Congressional Cybersecurity Caucus. And I know for you and many others, the writing here was on the wall. You said last week, Congressman, that it wouldn't surprise you if Trump fired Chris Krebs. What signify to you?
I'm Chris Krebs has done an outstanding job at he ended certainly securing U.S. elections, but also doing his very best to protect. And probably he was a job. So because his job, as he stated, it's definitely we had the most secure U.S. elections in U.S. history.
Do you think the CIA Director Gina Haspel and FBI Director Chris Wray will be next?
Unfortunately, it just seems like the political interest and just going down and letting certainly Chris Krebs' case, the House integrity job, I believe, and it's not at all in politics either. But then 110 U.S. elections. I go speak to power, and it seems like those who speak truth to power and are serving for the right reasons are the ones that serve. It's not the American way. It's not what President Howard was president should be operating.
What does this mean for the safety of Americans, this purge that we're witnessing?
Well, it certainly is destabilizing it. And at a time right now, with so much going on, certainly how we combat coronavirus and the government and on edge, trying to hold things together until we get a vaccine. Crisis right now, and stability. And unfortunately, President Trump will have any fun on stability. Settling to see what's going on. Started out concerned, Joe Biden can't get in office soon enough. I'm sure we sent out the congratulations to but the American people have spoken. We can't have Biden on the job soon enough. There's not a
Concerns in the interim bill here, when it comes to vulnerabilities that adversaries can exploit right now,
Identity adversaries are also equal to get an advantage over us. And one cybersecurity, and Chris Krebs understands this as well as anyone. Cybersecurity and cyber attacks and operations are in what's called the area of the gray zone. So below the threshold of bomb conflict, and the adversary can do us, and it may not cross that red line per se, but it is damaging enough that it weakens U.S. national security and it puts us at risk. So we need the very best people on the job, doing the job, all hands on deck, and making sure that in a conflict position, that an enemy or an adversary can't be operating in that great zone for equal ways to take advantage and weaken America.
Congressman, thanks for being here. We really appreciate you coming on the show.
No, actually close the door.
In Wayne County, it's
Degrees.
41.
Yeah. What?
I'm going to take the lights and ask this downstairs and put them in that closet on one of the shelves.
Okay. You mean, the lights for we replace light bulbs?
Huh?
But the replacement of light bulbs?
Yeah, the replacement light.
Okay. I just took one out last night, replaced one out in the garage.
You took one out?
Yeah, that one was burned out outside
Oh.
when the door was open. Two side lights out the door.
So now you know where they'll be.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, all right, guys. We'll see if we can get started in the near future here. Excuse me.
I should have my wife doing this, Brandon, because she takes care of all the records, expenses and everything else. So
Well, that's okay. We keep Abby and I keep having those
in
conversations.
fact, I got it all in front of me on a spreadsheet that she ran out from Quicken. So
Oh, there you go.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. Was that enough time? Were you guys able to kind of work through that a little bit?
So we could just fill out that actual spreadsheet that'll populate in for us. The same one.
Yep.
Okay.
Ashley, I'm assuming you're on the phone. Yeah, she's on the phone. I can tell.
I gotta leave about 12:30, so.
Nope, that's okay. All right. Well, so like I said, it's a big piece to the puzzle. There is kind of working through the pace and everything else in that spreadsheet. I know it can be a little daunting, but it's hopefully it's a pretty incredible tool, right? So if you get stuck with it or you want to continue to work through it, feel free to reach out, and I would be happy to kind of walk through that and kind of see where we are. Now, as you kind of look through the rest of this, we're just going to kind of wrap up here with a couple things about really just talking about achievement. and sort of where we are, right? So there's kind of 5 steps that we talk about when looking at achievement and actually taking your plan and moving forward with it. The first one that we talk about is, being accountable. And the reason we talk about this is because there is, without it, you don't get to do it, right? Sometimes self-accountability works, sometimes it doesn't, right? A terrible piece for me is like, oh, I should really go to the gym, and being self-motivated. And sometimes I think that's a great idea. Then I wake up and I'm going, I'm really tired. I got 4 kids and I didn't go to bed until midnight. And I had a kid crawling on me until 2 a.m. I'm not going to get up and do it. There's no accountability versus the times when I've gotten up and I've met somebody there, or I'm going to meet somebody for breakfast or whatever. It's a lot easier for me to get up, right? There's that additional accountability layer that is there. And so, so when we talk about self-motivation, what are some ways that you guys have found to be helpful and supportive in maintaining self-accountability? How are you going to do this? What are some tactics you use to help walk through this? What are you going to do?
My wife.
Spouses are great. You bet.
For me, would probably be coming to the office because, like today, if you've noticed, I've had a lot of interruptions. My dogs are worse than kids.
Yep.
And resort calls kept coming in, but I guess that would be big for me, coming into the office
Okay.
to be able to focus better.
Yep. I find that to be true too. When I'm in the office, I tend to be, my focus time isn't nearly as strong when I'm in the office, but my productivity time is usually a little bit higher, which is great.
Except for COVID, I'm not as comfortable going in now.
Yeah, no, I do understand that.
Yeah.
Any other ways that you guys are talking about self accountability? Any other ways that you guys find really helpful? So, coming into the office, setting some time aside, using a significant other or a spouse to help walk through those pieces. Anything else that's really helpful to help you stay on track for where you are, right? So, we're talking about prospecting activities. You work through the rest of that worksheet. You're going to figure out, where are you going to spend money? How are you going to spend money? What are you going to do? How many contacts? All those pieces are there. Now, self-accountability is really important, right? It's helping us. You can use me for a little bit of accountability. One thing we're going to do going into next year is I want to set up a monthly meeting, kind of a just roundtable discussion around marketing ideas and, some prospecting ideas and different things that we can do just to collaborate a little bit more as agents. And you can join us or not, it really doesn't matter, but at least it's an opportunity to say what's working. What are you guys finding that's going well in the market space? Because we're all going to serve different people and different clientele, so that we shouldn't feel like it's a threat to share that, oh my gosh, I made this really funny video and it worked out really, really well, or hey, I sent this piece of mail to my clients and I got a really good return rate. Like, we should be sharing those kind of stories with each other to help uplift everybody. So it's okay, right? There's a lot of strategies that we can work on as far as being accountable to each other. But the next thing that comes with that is understanding that you need to forgive yourself too, right? Let's see here. I think I forgot to share my screen, didn't I? Oh no, I'm sharing my screen. Never mind. I had this panic attack, right? So the art of self-forgiveness. So we talk about understanding that balancing our time and money and resources is all part of the game that we have to come in to do. But it's okay that, if one day, in my example, if I don't make my 4 calls because it's July 3rd and I'm traveling and, I'm taking time and I don't make my 4 calls that day, we need to be able to step back and say, it's okay that we didn't make that goal, right? We can forgive ourselves and we can move on. Some of us will even say, you know what, I'm going to tack those 4 on, 1 each day next week, so I'm caught right back up to where I should be, so I don't miss my mark. There is an okay time when you can say, you know what, life happens. My kids get sick. My wife gets sick. The resort's on fire. Hopefully not. That's a terrible example, right? The resort floods, or I don't know what's going to happen over there, right? But there's something that happens and it's okay. So we want to make sure that we have enough opportunity for us to say, it's okay that we can do this. So we want to make sure that we find that balance and practice the art of self-forgiveness. The next thing we want to do is I tell people this, it's like mold and water and everything else, right? It follows the path of least resistance. And this is where you want to start having some conversations about what are my best resources. And you want to start tracking a lot of this stuff, you guys. And you can do it really simple on just a notebook. You can do it in an Excel doc. But we want to make sure that you, as an agent, are maximizing your time and resources when you're lead generating, right? We don't want to be doing $15 an hour work if you're worth $50 an hour, right? We want to make sure that you know your hourly worth, and we know what activities you should be doing and what activities you shouldn't be doing. And if you don't know your hourly worth, you should figure that out so that you have an understanding of, hey, should I be doing this or should I not be doing this? And getting some clarity on those roles. So what you see here is just a benchmark study where it talks about different demographics. The one that I don't believe is on here though, your sphere of influence in past clients. So this comes from Realogy agents that say only 4.5% is your path of least resistance. This is a benchmark study from Realogy. I don't know that I believe that, because other industry trends will tell us that anywhere between 40 to 60% of an agent's business can come from their sphere of influence and their past clients. And so although this is a meaningful slide to at least talk about, to know your numbers to find the path of least resistance, I don't know that I necessarily agree with the fact that this is the path of least resistance. You want to know your path and don't fight it, right? If you know that you suck at converting online leads, don't convert online leads, or let's get some training. Let's get together and talk about, what are you doing? What's your follow-up program? How can we help you build that out if that's an area you want to get better at? If you're really good at, going to the coffee shop and sitting there and having a conversation with somebody and converting them, maybe you need to go have coffee. Maybe you need to go work in the coffee shop and get a little sign that says, hey, I'm a realtor, ask me questions, right? We can do all sorts of creative things, but we want to make sure you're finding the path of least resistance. Let me see. Okay. Next, so we talk about following that, but then we start talking about your money makers, right? We want to know what is your best money-making opportunity, and that's where we talk about lead generation. Are you really good at sitting down and talking to people? Are you working on negotiating? What is your strengths and what are you doing, right? So you really want to know, what are the money-making activities that you're doing? Sitting looking on Facebook and on Instagram is most likely not a money-making activity for a lot of us. Every once in a while it will be, but picking up the phone and calling people is going to be a money-making activity. One of my favorite things to do that I tell people about for building trust and relationship inside the sphere is sending happy birthday messages, right? Usually every morning with a cup of coffee, I sit and I go through Facebook and it says, here's the people with the birthdays. My CRM will email me a list that says, these people have birthdays if I have their dates appropriately. My phone, if I learn of somebody's birthday and I put it in my phone on their contact, my phone will tell me, hey, it's this person's birthday. So I'll stop and I'll go, hey, I better send them a quick message while I'm walking out the door, right? And just a way to try to stay engaged with people so that they know we're thinking about them. It doesn't even have to be anything special. It can be with your phone and just, hey, it's Brandon. Hope you're having a great day. Happy birthday. Be blessed. Be awesome. Move on, right? Simple. But you want to know your money-making activities so that you know where you're going and what you're actually doing to be a part of it all. All right, the last thing you want to do is we want to talk about, the other thing you want to do, allocating your time wisely. So this is where we start to look at the 168-hour plan, okay? So right now, there's only 168 hours in a week, okay? Time management is an absolute critical component to our success and understanding how we want to work and function. Now, if you go back to my Excel doc, this very last tab over here is 168 hours, okay? I'll blow this up here a little bit. So this is going to help tell me what in the world is going on and how am I going to spend 168 hours, right? So I came through here and I just said, my lead generation, okay, so I know with my scenario, I have to make 4.1 calls every single day. I think I can get that done in less than an hour. That's going to be some of my lead generation, my prospecting time. I'm going to say it's going to take me 2 hours throughout the day throughout the week here, to kind of work at it and say, I think I'm going to spend probably 4 hours a week working on administrative stuff, sending contracts, sending hell sheets over to the title company, checking emails, all those types of things, right? So I can work through some of those things. My daily time working on this would be about 2 hours, my bad. Daily time working on my business. So there's a difference between working on your business and working in your business, right? So what we're doing today is we are working on our business. We're working on business planning, on goal setting, on marketing activities, instead of working in our business. In our business means that I'm making phone calls, I'm doing listings, I'm writing contracts, right? I'm working in the business of real estate, not on my business of real estate. So that's a big difference. So I'm going to spend 2 hours I'm going to spend an hour a day working on my business, reviewing goals, working on marketing activities, some of those aspects, right? So my time per listing, let's just say it's 2 hours. My time for buyer prep is 2 hours. Servicing listings is 2 hours. Time touring and servicing a buyer, I'm going to say it could take me upwards of I'm going to say an hour and a half on that. Right? Negotiating contracts is going to maybe take me 2 hours. Time per inspection is probably going to take me 3 hours, let's say. Maintaining pendings is maybe only going to take me an hour, right? Time per closing is probably going to be 2 hours. Time post close is maybe another hour, right? So I can kind of work through a lot of this stuff and then come back and you'll notice my hours work, because I said I would work, 40 hour or 6 days a week. What did I say? I think it was 6 days a week, I think is what I said, something like that. So if I'm working 45 hours, this was figured out in the formula. It tells me calculated by weekly totals, I have only worked 29 hours this week, right? Well, great. That means I can come back. Maybe I can spend more time on my post close. Maybe I'm going to spend more time, prospecting, and I'm going to spend some more time working on my business, right? So now I got a little bit more time, and it starts to kind of schedule out your week for you, so you got some time. Then you come down and you start talking about your personal time, okay? So I'm going to start working through my personal time, and I'm going to say, hey, I spend 7 hours a day sleeping, because that's what they always tell you should get. If you know that, you probably don't always get that. I'm going to spend 3 hours a day on meals, an hour for every meal. To take an hour to get ready in the morning. I want to spend 2 hours working on community involvement stuff throughout the day, an hour of fitness, hour of meditation time, a couple hours of family time, and maybe some me time for you introverts who need a little bit of time, right? So it starts to process this, and then it figures out that, okay, I have 138 hours of my week already booked, okay? So 138, well, we have 168 hours total. So now this starts to provide some margin for you, right? And one of the phrases we like in my house is margin. We always strive to figure out how can we create more margin and more space so that we can do some of the other things that matter. So we can take that trip to Disney. So we can work on, house projects or whatever it is. But so this is where you guys are really going to start to work through, what does my time allocation look like, and how can I make my 168 hours every single week count and be maximized? And that's where working through this very last tab is going to be really, really beneficial to you. I think you'll get a really good idea of how much time you're going to spend on your business, how much time you're going to spend in your business, and then how much time are you going to spend just with you and doing what you want to do and how you want to have some fun. So that's where that last tab on the spreadsheet for 168 hours is really pretty critical. Now, one of the things you can do is you can talk about rating yourself, and you can say, what are some realities of where I'm going to be? So I want you to just take a quick sheet of paper and just kind of rate yourself 1 to 5. 5 being you are the absolute best, 1 being you are the absolute worst, right? It's going to say, am I ready to get down to business and start hitting these new goals that we just planned out? And maybe you don't have them completely done yet, and that's okay. But how ready are you, right? Same thing, your 1, 3, and 5 year goals. Are they realistic? Are they measurable? Can we attain them, right? How ready are we? Next one is, I know my lead generation activities have me on a path of least resistance and with the greatest return. So maybe you need to spend a little bit more time talking about what were your actual lead sources. Were they truly your path of least resistance, or did you need a little bit more involved? And then lastly, your 168 hours, are you ready to realign your schedule with your time in order to meet your goals? Because if you don't, you have your behaviors and then you have your actions, right? And a lot of times people get stuck with there be certain behaviors are going to do one thing, but the outcomes or the actions they want are different. And the problem is we don't ever realign them, right? We're not willing to change our behaviors to realign with our actions. And so we have to figure out a way to bridge those together. So when you look at the 168-hour piece, if you're not willing to align them or make corrections, you're not going to go forward to actually get the outcomes and the actions that you want. Okay, so how do you guys feel? I mean, is this kind of sinking in? Is it resonating a little bit with you? A couple nods. Okay, I'll work with it. That's fine. It's good enough for me, right? All right. So lastly, you guys, I'm not going to ask you to share your scores on these because it's yours, and I want you to embrace it and own it and live it, right? And so lastly, is this one is just the look forward, right? And so really what I want you to do is have a really good understanding of where you are. I want you to also know that we're in this together, right? You've partnered with Coldwell Banker. We want to be your business partner. We want to help you succeed and achieving the goals that you have planned. Whatever you wrote down, whatever you have finalized, we want to help you get there. And we want to start being a little bit more actively engaged in your book of business to help you achieve the goals that you want. And if you need something to reach one of your goals, or you're like, hey, I don't quite know how to do this, but I know I want to do it, that's what we're here for, right? We want to have a collaborative environment where we can support you and be your partner to help you grow that business so that we can have a really, really great time and probably the best year ever coming up in 2021. So with that, you guys, if you have any questions, that's the end of what we got going on today. I imagine that you will probably have a whole bunch of homework and processes to get through, which is totally fine. It's just make sure that you actually, kind of work through it. So I did put up on the screen here too, there is, if you go to cvevals.com, there's a chance for you to actually share a little bit of feedback if you'd like.
There you go, Ken.
See, Ken?
Oh, no.
Part of me put this up just to see what Ken would do, to be completely honest. You don't have to fill it out. If I would be interested to know, and you can send it to me later, it's fine. Just to kind of know, was it helpful? Was it meaningful? Was it worth your time? I think the spreadsheet is obviously going to take you some time. Even if you use the PDF version, it's going to take you a little bit of time to digest. I know I really only gave you 30 minutes to kind of dive into it, and you probably had to go to the bathroom and get coffee and feed dogs and answer phone calls. So I get you might not be all the way through it. I would just encourage you to take a little bit of time as we start to wind down. We're halfway through Q4. As we start to wind down Q4 and start to ramp up for 2021, spend time, really fill this thing out, really get to know it, really get to love it. And then from there, you should have a really good opportunity and a really good roadmap for how we make 2021 your best year ever. So thank you guys very much. I'll stick around if you have any questions. Otherwise, get to work, and I'll probably try to circle back with you here in about a week just to see if you've made any progress and actually finished it and made use of our time here today. So thanks for sticking around, you guys. I hope it was meaningful, and we will talk to you soon. See ya.
Goodbye.